Howdy, everybody. It is Thursday, um, the end of our third week of our humanities class. Hope you all doing well. Hope you all are having not having issues with finding the stuff on Canopy. I've had several emails. Evidently, I didn't put the titles down of the parts of the story of film you needed to watch. I just put down parts 1, part 2, and parts 4 when sound comes in. I didn't put the actual titles, so I thought you could just go to part 1, part 2, and find it. Um, but it's early, all the early film stuff. It's the opening of the book. If you have the book, the textbook, it's the first 4 chapters of the textbook. I'm just now starting to get into grading your first papers on your first film, so have patience on that. It takes me a while to get to all the grading, but I hope you saw the announcement in Pages. I put some keys to what I look for in these essays. Okay. Uh, Other than that, the weekend's upon us. These weeks are going to go by frighteningly fast. In fact, this is a long weekend. It hardly matters anymore. Seems like we have you can't travel much. It's Labor Day weekend. Normally we wouldn't go to class, so I'm not going to go to class on Monday. So my next lecture won't be till next week. For you guys, it'll be Tuesday. Anyway, so take the weekend off, the long weekend. Be safe though, whatever you do. If you're going to party with a bunch of friends, wear a mask. If not, don't go into public after you've partied, because you're going to bring the COVID to unsuspecting people, whether you believe in it or not. It's a thing, folks. Anyway, on that happy note, I want to talk about something I'm passionate about besides the arts, um, and that is uh, the early days of theater. I'm going to have a discussion. I'll post it today. You can start discussing. I'm going to just simply ask you, do you have any relationship to theater? Have you ever seen a play? Is it boring to you? Is it exciting to you? Have you ever wanted to be participating in a play? Have you ever wanted to act on the stage or sing on the stage or perform on the stage? Maybe you do. I don't know. Have you ever wanted to write a play? Maybe you have. Maybe we should look at these things. Maybe you have no idea what any of this is about, and this is all new to you. You know, we only live 2 hours from Ashland, and it has world-class Shakespeare Festival. It's closed down now because of the pandemic. I'm afraid to say. Has anybody ever been to Ashland to see any of the plays? They not just then they do Shakespeare. That's their main thing, but they have 2 other stages where they do other contemporary plays, plays by Arthur Miller and are so contemporary. I know Tennessee Williams, but they do new playwrights in the small theater, and they'll do experimental theater, and it's a repertory theater that runs 9 months out of the year, and it's only 2 hours up the road from us. But it's all shut down now for the pandemic, at least for the fall. I don't know what's going to happen in the spring. They probably don't either. Anyway, theater, is it important? Why do we talk about it after all these years? Why do people put on plays? Why is it called plays? Plays, folks, think about it. They're playing. Um, so I'm going to have you guys um, watch a couple TED Talks. I already posted them on modules. Go look for them. Lecture 7 on modules. And theater, why does it matter? One TED Talk will be talking about, it's really simplistic. What is theater? What makes theater work? Why is it theater? Um, it's a very clever. They do it in a humorous way, but you can really see the nuts and bolts of what constitutes live theater on a stage. And then the other talk is about Shakespeare. Next week, we're going to get heavily into Shakespeare. Be prepared. Um, your next paper is probably going to be something to do with Shakespeare. It won't be till next week, so don't worry about it now. Because you just have your other paper assigned, right? On the Dutch painters. So worry about that right now. But during this time, this great renaissance of the arts and culture, and with painters and builders, music, there was writers. And I'm only going to talk about playwrights right now. And there was plays have been around for a long time, folks. They go back to ancient Greek theater. That's where it all kind of formally started, although people have been putting on plays around campfires since before man could read or write. They were telling stories around a campfire. That's a form of theater. That's how it started. These stories are brought down. They're there to keep the stories of our history of who we are going. And so people were storytellers and they would tell it around the campfire. That's how we got our first lighting design. The flickering of the flames is dramatic. How many of you have been at a camp out and it's night and someone wants to tell a spooky story? It works pretty good when there's a little campfire and the woods are dark behind you and you hear creepy sounds out there. You don't know what they are. And someone tells a good ghost story. That's theater, folks. That's the beginning of it. Now, it's been formalized during this time in England, especially the Globe Theater. They call it the Old Globe now because there was the New Globe. The Old Globe burned down, folks. They've rebuilt it to make it look exactly like the other one. It's in England, London, and it's where Shakespeare performed, wrote his plays, and became a well-known playwright in his lifetime, famous in his lifetime, and the plays were put on in the Globe Theater. I might have next week. We'll be looking at some documentary footage of the Globe Theater, so you'll know what I'm talking about. This is Shakespeare's stage. And he wrote his plays. You might not think so because you might think the Shakespeare language is difficult. It is. It's heightened poetry spoken in an iambic pentameter, which is, if you take acting, you'll know what I'm talking about. It takes a lot of training to speak the poetry of Hamlet correctly. It's not easy. But once you get the hang of it, it is rather easy. And he's telling a rather simple story. For a good example is Hamlet. Who here has ever heard of it or seen it? Maybe you had to read it in high school. You'd read it, I'm sure, because reading plays is not what they're made for. They're made to be put on the stage. And so when you read a play, sometimes it doesn't translate that well because it's supposed to be performed by actors speaking parts. So Hamlet, maybe you've seen the movies, and then a bunch of movies of it. Kenneth Branagh made a 4-hour epic. He did the entire play without any cuts. He played Hamlet. I don't really care for it that much. It's pretty, I don't know, show-offy. I prefer more modest productions. But that's my preference. I'll recommend some next week. You can look at it on YouTube. Peter Brooks does a wonderful Hamlet, stripped down stage. The actors are there. It's real. They're speaking this wonderful language. And he has a black Hamlet. which is brilliant casting because Hamlet is not a part of this group of people. Were there black people in Hamlet's time in Denmark? Probably not, folks. But Peter Brooks is a brilliant director who's getting very old now. I think he's well into his 90s and works out of Paris, France, although he is not from there. And he produces some of the most riveting, important theater in the 20th century, 21st century. And he's still at it, albeit slowed down a bit. When I signed this Hamlet this summer, students rebelled against it because you really have to pay attention. It's not show offy. It's just like people talking for real, not running around in costumes stabbing each other, although that happens also. Anyway, I might have you watch some excerpts from different Hamlets. They've made several Hamlet movies. One of the earlier ones was with Laurence Olivier, where he had dyed his hair blonde because he's from Denmark, I guess. They're all blondes. And of course, Laurence Olivier is always a powerful man. And he directed it. And it's kind of a definitive film version of Hamlet, but later on they made other versions. Mel Gibson, Mad Max. You know who that is, right? He played Hamlet. He did a very good job. It's a real shortened version of it. Came out in the 90s, I believe, film version. A lot of famous actors, young and upcoming actors. It's the definitive role for a young actor. And for a middle-aged actor, usually it's Macbeth. And for an aging actor, it's always King Lear. We'll talk about this next week. But I'm just saying the history of theater has been going for literally before Jesus was born. In ancient Greek times, they were doing Electra and famous lines. If you ever get to read a Greek tragedy, I suggest you do. They're not that hard to read. They're not like reading Shakespeare. The language isn't an iambic pentameter, which is a cadence of poetry. I'll explain it a little bit clearer next week. But when you watch any of the Shakespeare play, any of the early plays of the Greeks, they're very relatable. And there's a lot of lines in there, and they're lines that they wrote thousands of years ago that resonate today. People still use them today. Here's one: "Hell hath no fury like a woman scorned." Because in the play, because she's scorned, she murders a bunch of people, folks. That's hell, right? So be careful who you turn down out there. They might come back on a killing spree. The Greeks knew the human condition pretty well. We haven't really changed. But why does theater matter? I want you to watch this TED Talk on Shakespeare, why he matters after 500 years. Why are we still doing Shakespeare plays? There's more Shakespeare plays being done, not in the pandemic, obviously, but throughout the world. His plays are done in China, they're done in India, they're done in Russia, they're done here, of course, in the United States, in England, Canada, Africa. Folks, Shakespeare resonates because he's telling fundamental stories about the human condition. Doesn't matter that it's about kings and queens. We can all relate to it, and in Hamlet, he's confronted with the ghost of his dead father, who was died suddenly. He finds out that he didn't die suddenly. He was poisoned by his own brother and his own wife. and now they've taken over the throne. And Hamlet spends the rest of the play behaving kind of crazy in order to seek revenge on those that killed his father. So it's essentially a revenge story. Also, it has one of the most classic, famous soliloquies. That's essentially monologues delivered out to the audience, not to their actors. Um, and there's like six monologues or so, soliloquies in Hamlet. Most of them are very famous. You've heard them, even though you might not have ever seen the play, because people still repeat these lines. So many of Shakespeare's lines resonate to this day from these plays, and people don't know where they came from. You're saying a Shakespeare line, you might not know where that Shakespeare wrote it. I'll talk about that later when I really go into Shakespeare. I'm not going to do that tonight because it's too much to go through. Shakespeare needs his own week at least, and we're going to go in depth next week. But essentially, his soliloquy that he delivers straight to the audience, and you've heard it before, whether you've seen the play or not, to be or not to be. Now, for the first time in your existence, think about what those simple words, what does it mean? To be or not to be? That's the play, folks. It's the existential question. Why am I here? Why do I exist? Should I kill myself? Should I continue to be existing or to not to be? Maybe you've asked yourself the same question. I have. Still here though, so I guess I want to be. I don't want not to be yet. That'll come soon enough. Anyway, so I want you guys to look at these TED Talks. One's on Shakespeare, one's on what makes theater tick. And they do it in a very humorous way. It's from Sydney, Australia. The guy has an Australian accent. So I think there's some subtitles because, they have some slang words that we don't use here. Anyway, go check that out. It's on modules right now. I've already posted them in Lecture 7. One is called Shakespeare, and the other one is called Why Theater Matters. That's what you're going to do. Then I want you to start a discussion. I'll post that. I haven't posted it yet. What's your relationship to theater? Give me a personal rundown of your relationship with theater. Anything? Have you ever gone to a play? Did you ever not want to go to a play? What keeps you from going to plays? I know now because they're not putting on plays. There's just no public gatherings. But does it interest you? Do you think you want to be on a sitcom in Hollywood? Well, guess what, folks? That's theater with a camera. Did your parents drag you to a theater and you found out you liked it? Do you like musicals? Do you like Annie, Rocky Horror Show, or something more serious like Sweeney Todd by the great, oh boy, forget his name now. Great musical playwright. Geez, why am I just drawing a blank on who wrote Sweeney Todd? I love this guy, Stephen Sondheim. There it is, got it. So I might watch all these clips next week on YouTube. But this week, I just want you to look at these two clips that I've announced on there and start the discussion up. I know you're writing your papers, but you can do the discussions too. There's no really reading in the book. I don't know if anybody has the book yet. I'm assuming you do. So I will. I did assign chapter 24 last week. Hopefully, you get through it. This is the 3-day weekend. There will probably. I don't know yet. There might be a midterm, and the book might come in handy on that. I haven't decided that yet, There's going to be a final quiz, but I don't know about a midterm quiz or not. Anyway, haven't decided that far ahead. Hope you guys are getting something out of this class. Hope you have some passion for humanity, for the accomplishments, and we've accomplished a lot. We're still moving and shaking out there. The humanities continue, they constantly change and they're fluid. And Why do humanities matter? They matter, folks, because we matter, you matter, and I matter. And how else do you show that we matter? It's just through the humanities, and that's through the great things we've done throughout history. I'm not talking about the bad things we've done. We've done plenty of those, and we've got plenty more to come. But we're talking about what makes humans different from any other mammal. Not just because we drive cars, fly planes, and listen to cool music. Yeah, we do that. But dolphins and whale, they probably think they're cool too. But they don't have our voices, they don't have our brains. And that's what makes us a little bit different. So on that note, I will cut this. It is Thursday. It is, what is it? September 3rd. September 3rd. I'll see you guys next Tuesday. Start the discussions, watch the films, and try, if you can, to enjoy them. Don't think these things are supposed to be torture and you've got to get through it. Hopefully, you're not being tortured. I leave that to other professors, like in your science and math class. Now, that's torture, folks. Anyway, so on that note, theater, why does it matter? Look into it. And I hope it does matter to you. And maybe I'll see you around next time when they put on a stage play. Until then, stay safe, be careful, and try to enjoy what we have. Smoke is clearing out a little. Go swim at the lake, go take a canoe trip down a stream, hang out in your backyard, and be kind to each other. That's it.